Welcome back. Today we're diving into something, well, vital and actually pretty fascinating.
hmm
It's the intersection of artificial intelligence and the fight against financial crime.
A really hot topic right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're zooming in on one specific tool, natural language processing, or NLP.
Yeah, NLP is seriously changing how compliance works.
Right. So the source guiding our deep dives today, it's an article called Natural Language Processing FinCrime Intelligence.
Mm,
And our goal here is basically to unpack this source, figure out how NLP is actually being used to sniff out hidden risks in, well, the absolute flood of text data we generate every day. Think of this as your shortcut to getting up to speed on this specific angle.
Makes sense.
So kicking things off,
Mhm.
the source defines NLP as a branch of AI,
Okay.
and it focuses on how computers interact with human language.
Right.
But interact, what does that really mean when we're talking about a computer?
Yeah, good question. It's about teaching a computer to do more than just, crunch numbers or read data fields.
Okay.
NLP lets machines actually understand, interpret, even generate language like we do.
Like humans use it.
Exactly. It's the tech behind things you probably use already, like text analysis, figuring out if a review is positive or negative, that's sentiment analysis or language translation. It's bridging that gap between how we talk and write and how machines process information.
And the article immediately ties this back to financial crime. It says its value is in sifting through these huge volumes of text data for compliance, for risk assessment. Why is text suddenly so important?
Well, because for so long, the systems fighting financial crime focus mainly on structured data.
Like account numbers, transaction amounts,
Yeah.
neat stuff.
Precisely. Stuff that fits nicely into databases.
Uh,
But think about how criminals actually communicate or how risks might be described. It's in language, right?
sure.
Emails, chat messages, notes inside a transaction, news reports, regulatory documents. This is all unstructured text data.
Okay. The messy stuff.
The really messy stuff, and there's just tons of it. Traditional systems, they just weren't built to handle it effectively. They'd miss a lot.
So stuff that doesn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet column.
Yeah.
Like you said, emails, reports, maybe notes, an employee types into a field.
Exactly that. Free text input. And that's often where the crucial clues, the risk indicators, are actually hiding.
Right.
NLP is the tech that lets machines finally understand and analyze these massive volumes of text that we were basically ignoring before or only sampling manually.
So it turns that free text input into something a machine can actually work with.
Spot on. It's designed to find the needles in that giant haystack of human communication.
Okay.
It looks for patterns, it tries to grasp the intent behind the words, and find those subtle hints of risk buried in just normal sounding language.
And the point is,
The point is to turn all that messy text into structured, usable insights for compliance teams. Insights they can actually use for assessing risk, detecting fraud, and handling their regulatory reporting. It's like putting a spotlight on data that was previously in the dark.
okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So where are we actually seeing this applied? Like right now in financial institutions, the source mentions some common uses.
Yeah, it lists several key areas. One big one is adverse media screening.
So automatically checking the news and things like that.
Exactly. Instead of analysts spending hours, days trying to manually scan countless news sites, press releases, blogs, whatever.
Which sounds impossible.
Pretty much. NLP systems can scan all that automatically. They're looking for potential reputational risks or any sign of connections to criminal activity for customers or other entities. It's about watching the public conversation, but at scale.
And what about customer due diligence or CDD? How does it help there?
Well, with CDD, you're looking at things like KYC forms, maybe customer explanations, application details, lots of text.
Right.
NLP can analyze that text. It pulls out the important info, but it can also flag potentially hidden red flags within the descriptions or narratives. Things an analyst might just skim over when they're swamped with documents.
Okay. And spotting the dodgy transactions themselves.
Yeah, that's under suspicious activity detection. It involves looking at the text linked to transactions.
Like the memo field.
Exactly. The memo field, payment descriptions, maybe internal notes about a transfer. NLP can pick out warning phrases or contextual clues in that text that might suggest fraud or maybe collusion or someone trying to structure payments to fly under the radar.
There's like internal communications are fair game too.
Oh, definitely. Chat and email monitoring is another use case, using NLP to review internal messages like trader chats or employee emails.
Looking for what?
Potential signs of insider trading, market abuse, maybe employees not following compliance rules. It's trying to understand the content and intent of those internal conversations.
And just keeping up with regulations must generate a mountain of text.
Huge amounts. So, regulatory text analysis is another area. NLP helps parse these really complex regulatory updates, guidance papers, legal texts.
Making sense of jargon.
Pretty much. It helps compliance teams understand what's changed, update their own policies, and figure out the impact on their business much, much faster than reading it all manually.
Okay, one more listed. Voice-to-text transcription review.
Right. This is about converting spoken words into text first. So think about recordings from trading floors or customer service calls.
Transcribe it, then analyze it.
Exactly. Once it's text, NLP can scan that for risk indicators, things that might only come up in spoken conversation.
Wow. Okay, so it really is being used all over the place. External monitoring, internal checks, transaction analysis. These applications must give a serious boost to, well, both finding risks early and making investigations more efficient.
Absolutely. It's enabling a scale and, frankly, a depth of text analysis that just wasn't feasible before.
Okay, so that's what it does and where. But how does the tech actually do it? The article gets into some core capabilities.
Yeah, the sort of building blocks. So a really fundamental one is named Entity Recognition, NER.
NER. Sounds like it spots specific things.
That's exactly it. NER automatically reads text and identifies and categorizes key bits of information, names of people, company names, locations, dates, money amounts, things like that.
Ah.
It helps put structure onto the unstructured text by pulling out the who, what, where, when.
What about getting the feeling behind the words, the tone?
That falls under sentiment analysis. It tries to evaluate the tone and context. Is the language urgent? Is it negative? Maybe suspicious?
How accurate is that?
It's not perfect, obviously. Language is tricky. But it can give you another layer of insight. It helps figure out the potential threat level or urgency, which helps analysts prioritize which alerts to look at first.
Keyword and phrase extraction. That seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but it's crucial. It's about automatically detecting specific words or phrases that are known flags for financial crime.
Like specific money laundering terms.
Exactly. Terms linked to known laundering methods, or sanctions evasion tactics, or specific types of fraud. It's like pattern matching, but with words and phrases.
And given finance is global, language and translation support must be essential.
Absolutely critical. You need systems that can process and understand text in multiple languages. Otherwise, you're blind to risks in data that isn't in English or whatever your primary language is. It opens up the world's data.
And lastly, the source mentions contextual analysis. How's that different from just spotting keywords?
That's a deeper level. It's about understanding what a word or phrase means based on the words around it.
The context.
Right. The rest of sentence, the paragraph, maybe the whole conversation. It helps NLP figure out the nuance. Is the word shell referring to a shell company or a seashell?
Yeah, big difference.
Huge. So context helps distinguish the real risks from innocent mentions, which is key to cutting down on those false alarms compared to just basic keyword searching.
Okay, yeah, putting those capabilities together, I can see how that enables this massive surveillance over text without just drowning the human analysts.
Which leads right into the practical benefits, the payoff that the source highlights for compliance teams.
Right. It lists things like improved accuracy and coverage in finding risks. Makes sense if you can suddenly see data you couldn't parse before.
Definitely. And that leads to faster alert resolution. If the NLP can automatically analyze, classify, maybe even summarize the key text, it gives analysts much clearer, richer alerts to start with, speeds up the whole review.
And reducing false positives. That's the dream for any compliance team buried in alerts.
Oh, absolutely. That better contextual understanding we talked about means the system is better at telling real risk from noise. Saves a massive amount of time investigating dead ends.
Enhanced regulatory reporting also gets a mention. Automating parts of, say, drafting suspicious activity reports, SARS.
Yes, NLP can help pull out the key names, dates, amounts, and the story, the narrative details, directly from the evidence text. It can help pre-populate those reports, which streamlines a really time-consuming task.
And all this efficiency.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Lower compliance costs, fewer manual review hours needed, more optimized case management. It all contributes to the bottom line compared to purely manual approaches.
So the source really emphasizes that NLP, when you combine it with machine learning, and this is crucial human oversight, it becomes a seriously powerful tool. Smarter, more agile compliance.
That combination is key. It's not about replacing the humans.
Right. Augmenting them.
Exactly. The AI gives you the scale, the speed, the processing power. But you
Yeah.
still need human expertise for the final judgment calls, the really nuanced decisions.
Okay, but it can't all be smooth sailing. The article does point out some real challenges,
For
right?
sure. There are definitely hurdles. Data privacy is a big one.
Makes sense if you're scanning emails.
Exactly. Especially sensitive stuff like employee emails or customer chats. You have to balance the need for surveillance with strict privacy rules like GDPR. It's a very fine line.
And accuracy must be an ongoing issue, especially with how weird human language can be.
Oh, yeah. It's not always easy for models. Think about sarcasm, idioms, slang.
Or criminals deliberately using coded language.
Precisely. That's really tough for current NLP models to get right consistently. It takes very sophisticated training data and techniques.
And just plugging this new AI stuff into old bank systems.
That can be a nightmare. Integration problems with legacy IT infrastructure are a common headache for big institutions.
And what if it misses something important? The risk of false negatives.
That's always a concern. If the model isn't trained well or if criminals change their tactics faster than the model learns, you could miss subtle but dangerous activity.
So what's the answer?
Well, the source stresses that institutions have to keep working on it, regularly tuning the models, testing them, having strong governance, clear policies. It's not a set it and forget it's technology. It needs constant care and feeding.
So pulling it all together then, the article's main point seems to be that NLP is really shifting how banks find, understand, and react to financial crime risks hiding in all that text data.
It really is. It's moving from being a nice to have to more of an essential tool.
Why now?
Because, as the source notes, the criminals themselves are getting smarter. Their communication is getting more sophisticated, harder to catch with the old school, rigid, rule-based systems.
So NRP is positioned as this sort of forward-looking solution. It boosts prevention, but also investigation across the board in compliance. It's unlocking data that was basically unusable before.
It's about trying to keep pace, maybe even get slightly ahead of how the threats themselves are evolving.
That was a really thorough walk through the source material on NLP and FinCrime intelligence. We've covered what it is, why unstructured data makes it so necessary, where it's being used, how it works underneath, the benefits, and yeah, the challenges too.
It really highlights how tech is reshaping this whole area.
Definitely. And thinking about those challenges, in the source's conclusion, it specifically said criminal communication is getting more sophisticated,
Yeah.
using nuanced language, including sarcasm, idioms, or coded criminal language.
Right.
So, given that criminals are actively trying to hide like this, what does that really imply about the ongoing arms race between detection tech like NLP and the tactics criminals will inevitably develop next to try and beat it? How complex does this AI analysis have to get just to keep up? And what does that constant push for deeper linguistic insight mean for that critical balance between actually uncovering criminal intent and, well, protecting individual privacy?